Hello, thank you for watching my channel today. My name is Sarah and my channel is called Your True Shelf. Today it is the favourite video of the year to film, which is my top 10, although I actually have 11 books of the year, and I love watching these, I love making these lists, and I love looking back on my year of reading. So I'm going to just start straight away, but I just want to say that if you have a video of your top books of the year, please link it or tell me in the comments down below. Or if you just want to tell me your favourite books, because I love hearing other people's and finding new books which are fantastic. So, as always, these can change order. I've even changed the order just before I was about to film, but this is how it is. I have 4 of these books with me, and the others were either audio or library books, so I'll insert pictures of those ones. And yeah, sorry I couldn't narrow it down to 10, but I just couldn't. So my first book at number 11 is An American Marriage by Tayari Jones. This is a book which was on lots of people's lists last year, but I only read it this year. And this is different to what I thought it would be from other people's descriptions. So it's a book about 2 characters, and it's really a book about 3 characters, but they're obviously the main 2 characters are on the front cover. So there's Celestial and Roy. And they have recently married, and they're both doing well in life, and they go to visit Roy's parents, and whilst they're in a hotel they have an argument, and Roy goes out just to get a drink to clear his head, and he has a conversation with a woman at the ice machine, and later on that night the police burst into their room and say that the woman says that he raped her, even though he didn't do anything. And he then goes to prison for 12 years, or he's sentenced to 12 years, and there's obviously a big decision of what to do because they're newly married, and Celestial doesn't know whether she wants to put her life on hold for 12 years. And the third character in this book is a guy called Andre, who is Celestial's childhood best friend, who she's still friends with, and who actually introduced her to Roy. And she needs to decide whether she wants to wait for Roy or whether she wants to start a new relationship with Andre. And not only is it about this sort of love triangle, but it's also very much about parent-child relationships as well. So it's about Andre's relationship with his dad. So it's about Roy's mum dying, Roy's relationship with his biological father and the man who raised him, Celestial's relationship with her parents, and it's wonderfully written. It's a beautiful book. It's obviously also about wrongful imprisonment of black men, and I just loved this book. I really, really loved it. I'd highly recommend it. So that's my number 11. My number 10 is one that was a reread for me, and one that I listened to on Audible both times, and that is Olive Kitteridge by Elizabeth Strout. So I loved this more the second time because I got a lot more out of it. So Olive Kitteridge is the main character, and this is described as a book of interlinked short stories, but I think it easily reads as a novel as well. Olive is in her 50s, and she is a really big character. So she is very opinionated. She's quite an angry person. She likes to be in control. She likes to know people's business. She is a retired school teacher, so she really knows the people in the community because she used to teach a lot of them when they were children. And she has a husband and a son called Christopher. And it's really about her relationships with her family and the people in her community. So it's very much character driven rather than plot driven. But the audio is wonderful because the narrator does such an amazing job of bringing Olive especially to life, and Olive made me laugh so many times, but she also has some traumatic things, and she's got a family history of depression, and her dad committed suicide, and sometimes she is really kind of blundering and clumsy and rude, and other times she just is handles difficult situations really well. And it's really interesting, her marriage with Henry, who is the complete opposite of her. He's very passive and gentle and loving and sweet. and you just learn so much about the characters and why they are how they are. Some chapters focus completely on minor characters who live in the town, and Olive is kind of in it a tiny bit. So that's why I think it's like a collection of interlinked short stories. But I really love this, and I think that Audible is very much worthwhile because of how good a job the narrator does. And I guess that's the value of rereading. I only reread it because it was our book club choice, but I got a lot more out of it this second time. And there is a sequel called Olive Again, which I'm looking forward to reading. The next one, which is number 9, is Eatsa's Ballad by Magda Szabo. This is one that I read in for the Reading Women Challenge, which was, I think, a book by an Eastern European author was the prompt, and I never would have discovered this had it not been for that challenge. And I absolutely love this book, obviously, because it's on this list. So this was written in the early 1960s, and the writing is phenomenal. It's one of those books where, like, as soon as you start reading it, you just love the writing. And so this focuses on a family who live in Hungary, and so the mother is called Etty, and she's been married for a really long time. She's been living in a very sort of rural, disconnected community. She has very little in the way of modern day amenities. I don't even think they have electricity. And so when her husband dies, she's like kind of left alone, but she has her friends around her, and she has her routines and the things she knows. And Eatsa lives in Budapest, and she's a doctor. She's really successful. She's highly intelligent. And she says, look, Mum, you can't stay in this sort of rundown old cottage in the middle of nowhere with no amenities. Like, you have to come and stay with me, come and live with me, and start a new life in Budapest. And so Etty comes, and then she's just completely overwhelmed and completely like a fish out of water. And she doesn't have any friends. She doesn't know what to do with her days, because before she'd have to do a lot of manual work to try and, you know, chop wood for the fire and prepare meals and stuff. And Isa kind of takes over all that stuff and just says, look, Mum, like, you don't need to do all that stuff anymore. Just relax, just enjoy your retirement. Just, go and do what you want. Like, there's no worries about money or anything like that. And she's just completely lost. And she starts, so Isa has like a housekeeper who does the housework and the cooking and stuff, and Etty like wants to help, and then she just gets under the housekeeper's feet, and so then she feels like, oh, I can't even do that anymore. And it's just like it also focuses from Isa's point of view as well about like her about her marriage and her career, and what it's like for her having her mum with her, and how it was kind of set out with these really good intentions, but it's actually not working out at all. And it's just so good. I'd really, really recommend it. It's only quite a short book, but I just found it phenomenal. Great book. And I'd like to read more Magda Szabo as well. And thank you, Joe Smith, who recommended it to me. Number 8 is Love and Colour by Bolu Babalola. So this is one I read really early in the year, and this is a collection of short stories. And I am not a fan of collections of short stories normally, but this blew me away. I read it because Lauren from Lauren and the Books really recommended it the year before. And it's a series of retellings of myths and legends from around the world. And it is absolutely stunningly written. The characters are just beautifully written. And I listened to this one on Audible, and the narrator does a fantastic job, but also about doing the accents as well from different parts of the world. And the characters are so richly created that you don't feel like you're spending just a short amount of time with them. And some of the folklore and things from different stories I was aware of, and some of it I wasn't. But they were all sort of female centric. So there's women and a love story with each of the stories, but it's the women's perspective which is central. And there's really sensual stories, so they're not like explicit stories, but there's a lot of love and romance and stuff in there, but it's very sensually told. And I just thought it was fantastic, like, to blow me away so much by the creation of the modern day versions of all of these tales from, you know, all around the world from hundreds and thousands of years ago. And I just thought they were wonderful. So I'd happily read anything else that Bolu Babalola writes. And if you want some exciting, sensual, feminist stories, then definitely pick up this collection. Where are we up to? Number 7. Yes, number 7. So number 7 is another one I had on audio, which was This Close to OK by Leesa Cross-Smith. This was such a comforting book, even though the premise doesn't sound so comforting. So this is a dual perspective book. We follow Tally and Emmett, and basically Tally is a therapist, and she has fairly recently split up with her husband after they were trying IVF, and he ended up having an affair and getting another woman pregnant. So she's gone through a big trauma from that, obviously. And she's driving home from work one day and she sees a guy who is standing on a bridge who's about to jump. So she obviously stops the car and she manages to she's trying to talk him down. And she manages to get him away from the bridge, but she thinks, well, I can't just leave him. So she says, look, let's go for a cup of coffee and talk to me. And he doesn't know that she's a therapist. And they end up, he's very like Emmett, he's very much like a closed book. He won't really tell her anything. She doesn't know if she can trust him, or she doesn't know anything about him. And then they have this cup of coffee and then she kind of feels like, well, now what do I do? Because you haven't got anywhere to go or anything. So this is the bit where you have to kind of suspend belief a little bit, but she actually takes him back to her place, and she like locks her bedroom door, and she kind of says, look, you can stay here for a night, try and get some stuff sorted. And the book is set over a weekend, and this is just such, like, considering that mental health is a big focus of this book, it's done in such a comforting way. So like Tally is very into like hygge and self-care and stuff, so there was a lot of detail about just simple things like different teas, different textures of like clothes, different kind of cozy rituals that you can do about cooking, just like stuff that Tally has in her life as comfort. And you hear from both sides, from Emmett and from Tally, and it doesn't go where you expect it to go. And we just hear from both their perspectives and how they help each other heal from the really difficult things that have happened to them both. So I love this book. I'm kind of surprised it wasn't higher up my list, but again, it's such a changeable thing day to day. So yeah, I love this book. I don't know why I'm saying that about every book, because obviously I do, because they're all on this list. Number 6 is More Myself by Alicia Keys. Another audio. There's so many audios on here this year. This is one that Alicia Keys wrote herself, that she reads herself on the audio version. So this is her memoir, and I remember saying at the time, if I could give this 11 out of 10, I would, because I loved it so much. It's her story of growing up in Hell's Kitchen with a single mum, and her working like so hard at her piano, and then realizing she has a gift, and about how her mum was working so hard to try and keep them afloat, and about how she ended up sort of getting into the music industry, but it's about her journey as a woman, really, like what it's been like for her to have a blended family because her husband has children from another marriage, and about her own having her own children and falling in love, and about like her songwriting, but also just so much about her sort of spiritual development as a person, and her kind of when she had to take time out and go on some sort of retreats and things like that to kind of center herself again. And I just loved like her listening to her and how she grew as a woman, and how she became much more sort of confident in herself and everything like that. And she's a great woman, and she does a lot of charity work, and she has her own charity that she set up as well, and she's just phenomenal. Like, I love Alicia Keys now, and I just really, really highly recommend her book. Whether or not you're a fan of her music, I don't think it really matters so much, but it's just like last year I loved Jessica Simpson's memoir, and I loved Alicia Keys' memoir. Next year I'm going to read Mariah Carey's memoir. So yeah, this is fantastic. Then we're up to number 5, one I actually have next to me. So number 5 is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. So this was wonderful. I listened to it on Audible again, and the narrator was fantastic. And I went and bought myself a copy of the book afterwards because I loved it so much. So we are following here, I'm sure everybody knows about Rebecca, but we're following an unnamed protagonist, and she is very young, and she is she's sort of travelling with a female companion, an older woman. She meets Maxim de Winter, who is this sophisticated, attractive, older man, and he starts taking her out for lunch and things like that, and ends up proposing to her. And she accepts, and then they go back to Mandalay, which is Maxim's home, and she meets so Maxim's wife, Rebecca, has died, and everybody loved Rebecca, and so our protagonist has to go back to Mandalay, or go to Mandalay for the first time, and everybody is just comparing her to Rebecca, and she's quite young and insecure, and she doesn't know how to behave or how Rebecca would have done things, so she's got these really big shoes to fill. So Mrs. Danvers, who is the housekeeper, is very formidable, and she absolutely adored Rebecca, and we don't really know what happened there. Maxim won't talk about it, and she's just trying to, our protagonist is just trying to find her way in the world, and she loves Maxim, and he clearly doesn't really love her, and it's sort of a marriage of convenience and things, and it's just so wonderful. Her writing is outstanding. The setting and the characters and everything is so believable, and the narrator was wonderful as well, and so I absolutely loved this book, and I'd really highly recommend it to everybody. And number 4 on the list is The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon, which I've recently read, and is a huge epic high fantasy book. My first foray into high fantasy as far as I can remember. So we are following 4 different narrators here, all from different parts of this land, and we have a young girl who has just been selected as a dragon rider. We have the best friend to the queen in a different part of the land. We have one of the queen's ladies in waiting, and we also have a doctor who's been banished from the area. And so we follow their four perspectives. They are all living in different parts of this kingdom, and there are dragons who have been bound to sleep for 1,000 years. Dragons who are going to sort of basically destroy and try and take over the kingdom, and the 1,000 years is nearly up, and so they have to try and form allegiances between the different kingdoms in order to try and pull together against the dragons. But it's difficult because of history and rivalries, and some kingdoms think that others are sort of dragon worshippers and things like that, and there's different kinds of dragons. So dragons who are fire breathers and water dragons as well. So there's a lot of dragon stuff, which is really cool, and the writing's fantastic. The pacing is slower at the beginning, and while you're getting to learn who all the characters are, there's a lot of characters. There's a really big character list at the back, and there's maps, which I had to refer to a lot at the beginning. So it's something that you have to put some effort into to start off with, but it's definitely well worth the effort once you've put that effort in at the beginning, and the pace starts picking up and you're invested in all the characters. There's also a queer love story at the centre of this book as well. I just thought it was fantastic. The fact that anybody has the imagination to write these characters in so much detail in these lands and come up with so many characters and everything just blows my mind. And I'm definitely gonna read more Samantha Shannon. This is a standalone book, but at the moment, but I feel like it was left in a place where she could write a sequel if she wanted to. Number 3 on my list is The Pull of the Stars by Emma Donoghue. This was my favourite book of the first half of the year, and I absolutely loved it. It was my first Emma Donoghue. It was another one that I listened to on audio. And this is set, so she wrote it before COVID existed, but it was set in the Spanish flu in Ireland in 1918, and it's on a maternity ward. So this is for women who are pregnant or women who have just had a baby in hospital, and then they have the Spanish flu. And it is so immersive. It takes place over only a few days, and we're following Nurse Julia, who is our protagonist, and she is trying to manage this I think there's about 4 beds in her unit, and the mums are really sick, and there's nothing that can be done for them. Like, they didn't have any even antibiotics, and so it's literally like there's no IV fluids, there's no antibiotics, there's no anything apart from things like poultices and bandaging. So she's having to do a lot of actual physical nursing of these patients. That's all she can do. And there's one doctor who is a woman, and she is also very involved in politics, and people are very suspicious of her because they say that she might be a terrorist and stuff like that. And she was a real character, and it's just reminded me, there's a documentary that I found on YouTube about her that was an hour documentary, and I thought it would be fascinating to watch because she really existed. And so we get to know and love the mums on the ward and the babies, and we above all love Julia. And she has an assistant called Bridie Sweeney, who is from a children's home. She's now a teenager, but she was taken in by nuns after she got pregnant. There's a lot about Catholicism and the evils of the nuns in this book, and how abused they were in the children's homes run by the nuns. And Bridie goes just as an assistant who's untrained, and then ends up coming back other days, and it's about her relationship with Julia as well, and it's just fantastic. I loved it so much. And another kind of 6-star book. Number 2 is another audio. I feel like a breaking record. Maybe I just have more, maybe I get more immersed in audio, I don't know. Another one which I read for the Reading Women Challenge, and this was Nervous Conditions by Tsitsi Dangarembga. I loved this book. So this is set in what was then Rhodesia and is now Zimbabwe, in the, I think it's the 1960s. Excuse me. I think what brought this book to life for me so much as well was the narrator, who could do all the accents and, make sure that the words in another language were pronounced properly, and the names and everything, and that really brought it to life. So we follow Tambitsai. So Tambu is 14, and her brother, I'm not sure if he's older or younger, but her brother has been sent away to school with her uncle, who is in charge of a mission school, and he is doing very well for himself, and he's sort of the head of the family, and the brother gets sick and dies. This isn't spoiling anything, this is like first page, we know he's already died. And Tambu is really clever, and she really wants to go to school so badly, but everyone's like, oh, you're a girl, like, is it worth it educating you? It's really only boys that we need to educate. But the family are very reluctant for her to go, but she does get to go to this school, and after a lot of persuasion and things, she does get to go. And it's, so the uncle, Baba Makuru, he has been to England with his daughters and his wife, and they have, he's got degrees and things in England, and then he's come back to Zimbabwe, and his daughters have grown up in England, so when they come back, so Tambu's cousins, they're very sort of disorientated because they don't know all of the customs and the traditions from Zimbabwe. They're very like westernized, and when they come back to Zimbabwe, they're very sort of lost as to what they should be doing, why they're not allowed to wear the same clothes they're wearing in London, and they find it really difficult. And Nyasha, who's the older cousin, and Tambu like form a really close bond in the end, and Tambu's trying to help Nyasha, and try and help her sort of readjust to being back to a place that she doesn't remember being born in. And so there's that sort of theme about displacement as well, and culture and heritage and things, as well as Tambu's journey sort of through adolescence and being allowed to go to this school that she's like so happy to be in. And then there's the nuns which decide actually maybe they're going to try and select some children to take to their sort of white Catholic school. And so the learning about like the culture and the traditions and the setting, what it was like to live in poor conditions in Zimbabwe, and also like about the political climate, about how the Baba Maurier is very much like the leader and he makes all the decisions for the whole family. Just so things like that which are very different in like the culture I've grown up in. I just found it fascinating. I love Tambu. This is the first in a trilogy which was written over many years, and I really can't wait this year to read number 2 in the series. So then we come to my final choice, my book of the year, which was so hard to decide like which order to put these in. But my favourite book of the year was Lonely Castle in the Mirror by Mizuki Tsujimura, and this was translated by Philip Gabriel from Japanese. So this is a book which I saw on Jen Campbell's channel first and then on Christiane Jones' channel, and this is a fantasy book. We follow Kokoro, who is a teenage girl who has been really bullied at school, and she just feels like she can't go to school anymore because of the bullies and how much they're affecting her and her well-being. And so she's sort of staying at home and she's spending time, she's quite sort of down, she's spending a lot of time in her room just sort of watching TV and stuff like that. Her parents don't really know what to do with her. And then one day when she's in her room, her mirror in her bedroom starts glowing and sparkling. So she goes up to touch it and her hand just goes straight through the mirror. And she ends up sort of walking through the mirror and goes to this castle where there are 8 other, 8 young people who have all been through the same situation where they've had a really difficult time at school and they can't go to school anymore. And they are met by this young girl who's in a wolf mask, and she basically says to them that this castle's going to be open for nearly a year. You can come here every day, Monday to Friday, between 9 till 5. But you cannot stay past 5 o'clock, or some really bad things will happen. You have to go back through the mirror to your own house by then. And you have to work together because there's a hidden key in this house. And if you find the key and then find the room that it belongs to, whoever's first to use it gets a wish. So they all realise that. And she also says that whoever gets the wish will then shut down. The castle will then be shut down. So none of them really want to find the key because they don't want the castle to be shut down, because this place becomes like a safe haven for them. And they're all very wary of each other at the beginning. But they realise the more that they form relationships with each other and the more they open up and work together, the more they're going to find what they're looking for in the castle. And the ending of this book was so good. It really made me oh my goodness at the ending. Obviously I'm not going to tell you, but it made me just want to read the book from the beginning straight away and hug the book. I loved the ending so much, and I'm so glad that I read this. It's just wonderful. I would definitely read it again. I got to know and love all the characters, and Kokoro especially, and a lovely this would be really comforting, I think, for children who are having difficult times with bullying teenagers. I don't know if this was supposed to be a YA or an adult book. I really couldn't tell. It kind of reads like an adult book, but I think it would be suitable for teenagers to read as well. So that was my favourite book of last year today. Like I said, please let me know if you've read any of those, what you thought about them, if you want to read any of them, and what your best books of the year were, because I love to hear other people's lists or watch other people's videos. They're my favourite ones to watch as well as to record. So I want to just wish you all a very happy 2022. I hope it's healthy, joyous, peaceful, sparkling, wonderful for everybody. And I hope you read some amazing books. Thank you so much for all the support that I got over the last year. All the comments, all the friends, everything. Thank you so much. And if you haven't ever commented before and you want to say hi, please do. And I hope you have a wonderful week and a wonderful year. And I will see you very soon. Bye.